one of the core elements is learning how to message these things ahead of time, including people in the process. It's like the way we use power in the process. How do we bring people into the conversation and include them in the conversation? Outlining a strategy so that we know what we're doing, that it's implemented in an effective, methodical way that causes a little amount of disruption. Addressing the amount of fear and anxiety that this incurs. It's amazing that even CEOs, the amount of CEOs that are afraid of losing their business in the next decade because right? So senior leaders are scared of the technology. Lower level employees are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. Whole industry, we've been told that in the next decade, we're going to lose 70% of employment. That's a social issue as well, right? And whether it's true or not, and whether it means, but this disruption, there's this like subliminal anxiety that we all have.
The very latest on economic development, workforce, and industry sector news in Southern Colorado. Here is Business Digest Weekly with our host, Dirk Hobbs.
All right, good Friday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Business Digest Weekly. I am your host, Dirk Hobbs, and it is Friday, February 7th. Another end of a great week here in Southern Colorado. It's about 3 p.m., just 2 short hours away from happy hour, and we are going to talk about AI today. We've got 2 experts in the room, 2 Ph.Ds, so this is going to be a great in-depth conversation about how AI is going to make its way into our businesses. And I think the thing that we really want to pay attention to is how we do it, how we implement these things, and understanding the human dynamic, workflow dynamics. And we're going to do a deep dive in this. So if you're a procurement officer or you're, head of operations or anything like that, you're probably going to want to lean into this a little bit and understand who and how and why all this is coming together, and what some of the criteria for your vetting and decision-making as it relates to AI implementation into your company needs to maybe have some additional thought process attached to it. So anyway, stick around for that. I've got AnneMarie Artzen, Ph.D., and Rick Beaton, Ph.D., CEO of Motis One in the house, and they're going to be talking to us all about this. So just want to welcome you guys real quick to the conversation. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we're stick around. We're going to get to talking to them. But before we do, let me give you a few quick news briefs here. So Colorado and the UK have formalized a connection. Didn't know if you knew this. So a new partnership between Colorado and the United Kingdom aims to foster cooperation in economic relations, trade, and investment and job creation. So this agreement, signed January 27th, will develop shared opportunities in clean energy, climate, smart agriculture, quantum technology, space technology, tourism, and artificial intelligence. Something we're going to talk about today. According to the release from Governor Jared Polis's office and British Consul General Richard Hyde. So they signed this memorandum of understanding at the state capitol back in January. So jobs report came out. So Q4 shows a vacancy decline. Colorado job vacancies decreased while salaries increased in the last quarter of 2024, according to the Q4 job report from the Colorado Chamber of Commerce and Aspen Technology Labs. The report, which provides real-time workforce and jobs data, states the job openings in Colorado decreased by 3% between September and December, compared with a 0.7% decrease nationwide. It also shows that state's median salary offered in full-time job listings increased by 2.9% to $61,745 annually. This is ranked 13th highest in the state and is the median salary outpaced U.S. median salary of $58,490. So we're doing good on the compensation front, but we still have vacancies out there. So lots going on. So I encourage you to visit the Southern Colorado Business Digest website or sign up for your weekly news briefs from throughout Southeast Colorado and the state of Colorado. Go to socodigest.com/subscribe. As of today, there is no cost to gather that information. But we are going to put a sticker price on it here, probably in Q2 of 2025. Journalism, as it turns out, is kind of expensive. So in order for us to continue to keep top journalism in reporting in the business and economic sectors of Southeast Colorado, we definitely have to give a price of admission. So it'll be somewhere around a cup of coffee or two, and then you'll be in the know about all things going on here in Southern Colorado. All right, February 7th, it's Friday. I'm coming in for a landing. How about you guys? You ready? I'm done. I'm done with this week. So Dr. Rick Beaton, CEO of Motis OneAI, and AnneMarie Artzen, Ph.D. What is your formal role there? I didn't get a title for you.
Yes.
Do you have one yet?
I do. Okay. I am the Chief Strategy Officer.
Very good.
So lots of experience in international business and strategy.
Well, very good. Well, welcome to both of you. I'm excited about this conversation because AI is obviously a big, it's trending online. So let's unpack it. But before we do, I want to get to know you guys a little bit better and who we're talking to and how you got started here with Motis One. So, Rick, where do you hail from?
I'm originally from British Columbia, Canada. Okay. I've lived and worked in about 20 countries. Spent about 6 years working in Asia and lived in Europe and worked there quite a bit. Also spent a fair amount of time as an academic in European universities, and then started my own consulting company about 15 years ago.
Okay.
With the idea of bringing the best of social science research and the humanities into the business community to shore up how to build more human organizations.
Beauty. Okay. AnneMarie, how do you plug into this?
Oh, goodness. Yes, I was more or less born and raised in Alaska, and from there lived in Washington, California, now Colorado. I also spent a lot of time abroad, studying in Germany and Italy. And Rick and I had a friend in common. My master's program, we had a really good consulting friend that helped Rick earlier with a different business. And she's like, wow, you guys both are really into efficiency of businesses, people, and technology. So she hooked us up. And ever since I met Rick, he's been stuck with me.
How long ago was that?
That's been almost a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where specifically did you connect? Was it just online initially, or were you at a function or something like that?
We were introduced virtually, but then it was here in Colorado. So So we've been connected here.
And you guys are based out of where?
AnneMarie's out of here in Colorado Springs, and I'm just outside Denver.
Got it. Okay. Well, and the site, if you want to listen in or look at the website while you're listening in to these two folks, go to motis1.ai. That's MOTISONE.ai. So while we're talking, check out their website as well. So how did you guys dovetail into this conversation, and what's the business model around Motis AI?
There are two elements to what we're doing. One is the strategy consulting. I think organizations are faced with a change that they really haven't seen before.
Okay.
It's one thing to scale an organization, introduce advanced technologies and various things like that. With the technologies of AI, particularly generative AI, and now with sort of quantum computing, the way that we imagine work and think about work and our roles, responsibilities, even our business strategy, all of that needs to be reimagined. And so many of the firms are still working, and it's natural, our mental models come from the 1980s to about the 2010s, right?
Got it.
How we do business and how we think about our workforce. And you look at the tensions, and they're fundamentally different, and they haven't really changed much over the last 10 years. We're still talking about engagement and burnout and efficiency and productivity and working from home versus working in the office, whether we have managers or don't have managers. So the list goes on. And putting AI in the mix in that is going to fundamentally change it. So the one cool part of our business is that we're able to work with senior leaders and all the way through organizations to help them reimagine how they work together, create better efficiencies, and integrate the technology. So that's that side of it. We also are working to develop a really, really, what we think is a really cool AI app itself. And so there's that part of it that we're actively involved as a tech startup, have a really cool application, and we're taking that to market as well.
Very good. So this went from 0 to 100 almost, it seems like almost overnight, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of senior executives, at least my vintage and older, are a little overwhelmed and intimidated by this because it's something abstract. They can't control it. They're not really sure what the application outcome is going to be. And what's that going to do to their workforce, their customer interface, all that stuff. And I think it's really intimidating. But you guys are really looking at the humanity side of this as well.
Yeah, and that's our starting point. We use the language human-centered design, and that really goes back to the 1980s and 90s, sort of the Stanford Design Lab, and IDEO was one of the early. So you see it mostly in user experience companies, but there is a real method behind it. And so we apply human-centered design to the problem. So we begin with thinking about the organization as a human place, and that there are certain elements. That's why the social science research is so important to us. It's great to do the surveys from the bottom up to find out what people are thinking and feeling, but there's a ton of research that we've been doing for the last 25 years that actually is relevant to how we run an organization, and we actually know some things. And so the question then is, can we build a human ecosystem that is aligned with organizations and what businesses want to accomplish? And by creating a robust human ecosystem, it can actually help with our business results. I think it was McKinsey said that, and Gallup as well, both of them are saying that organizations are leaving like 30 to 40% of productivity and profitability on the table because their human ecosystem is fundamentally flawed. That's the problem we're trying to solve.
Okay.
And I don't think people really realize that human capital, our employees, are one of the biggest resources that every firm has. And, another study by McKinsey, we like McKinsey, but they talked about humans being up to 80 to 90% of the value of your company. So if you've got executives leaving 30% on the table because they're not thinking of people as the main resource that their company's built around, they're losing a lot of money.
They sure are. Well, we're sitting here with Dr. AnneMarie Artzen and Rick Beaton, both PhDs at Motis OneAI. If you want to look at their website while we're having this conversation, please do. It's motisone.ai. It's motisone.ai. When we come back, we're going to look at how this will change business and culture and society and some of the impacts on the workforce dynamics and the organizational workflow. So stick with us. This is going to be a material conversation, so you might want to grab a notepad and paper as well. Back in a moment.
My experience with Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group has been top-notch. The whole orthopedic group, they've worked very well together. Even when I've gone through PT or needed to get my collar prosthetic, everybody's been just right on top of it. It's all centralized and the communications have been awesome. Even though I had my nervousness about going into surgery, I was still very confident. I knew I was going to be okay. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group is definitely getting me back to my life and the things that I want to do.
All right, we're back here second quarter with Business Digest Weekly on a February 7th. It's about 3:15 in the afternoon. I am halfway out the door. Hopefully you are too, to enjoy a beautiful weekend here in Southern Colorado. It's been a beautiful week. It's nice to see those temperatures warm up. I actually, I went ahead and planted a palm tree. We'll see how it goes. I mean, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Actually, I did see one like fully grown palm tree on a street here in Colorado Springs. Of course, the fronds are dead, but it's just a stick. But they tried. Noble effort. So nonetheless, we're hanging out with two great people here who are going to help us understand a little bit more about how to implement AI into our businesses and really the cultural dynamics, workflow disruptions, all the things that, we are anticipating, but are we anticipating them correctly? But I want to put this in a conversational format. Doctors AnneMarie Artzen and Dr. Rick Beaton. They're the founders and CEO. Rick is the CEO of Motis OneAI. If you want to look online while we're talking, go to motisone.ai. Check the website out and then listen in on this conversation. So welcome back, guys. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really glad to be here.
Really appreciate you jumping in here. So let's get a baseline on the conversation so we can kind of trail people into some of the more sophisticated conversation we're going to have around this. So, AnneMarie, you made a reference to, first we had fire, then we had the net. Seriously, I mean, it seems silly, but, when man traverses these milestones, it's a big deal. So unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So looking at AI as an invention that humans have done. And so far, we started with, as you said, fire and tools and the wheel and all of these inventions that furthered along our culture, further along man. And for the first time ever, we have a fully new invention that has the capacity to be smarter than humans. This is the first time we've ever done that. Our Apple computers are amazing, but they're not going to start talking for us and telling us what to do.
Right.
But in the future, they may. So if you look at our inventions and how long they took in between, it's a long time, a huge amount of time. And then you think of this is going to be our biggest wave of technology ever. Since, really the Industrial Revolution, we haven't had anything like this in a long time. So this is the first time we've got not only a disruptive technology that's going to revolutionize the way we think, we have to reimagine the way we work with this technology. Because for once, it's no longer man with tool, it's man with a companion, man with an analytical genius, almost to say, that's going to be smarter than us. So it takes a lot to reimagine where this is going.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that just to digest that. I mean, that's perfect though, because that's a framework that we're in. And I don't think a lot of people understand that because it's not articulated very well all the time. Because a lot of times AI companies will come to us with solutions, right? It's solutions first. And then somehow we have to figure out how to integrate that.
Well, it's tricky because I remember the first time I was involved in building software, a friend of mine who ran a big software company and was a Ph.D. in technology, his advice was, he said, well, Rick, look for something that businesses are doing on paper, write some software, automate what was on paper, remove it, and then sell that.
Okay.
So in a sense, what they're doing is there's this backward-looking view of taking a best practice or an existing system, and then what we do is we build software and automate it and sell it. And to a certain extent, that's what everyone's still doing. And it's the whole venture capital market. They want small problems solved, provide software so that we can sell it. There's been another element in the background that's more of a philosophical conversation, and we call it extended cognition. So it's a way of extending and improving humanity and so your mental aspect and what you can do. So, for example, a calculator. Once I give AnneMarie a calculator, all of a sudden she doesn't have to do her tables anymore and her maths anymore. She has a machine that she can type in the numbers and arrive at the answer. That's a form of extended cognition. Computers function that way. So there's all these tools around us that we've created that have extended us, that make us smarter, that make us improved. Gen AI is different.
Okay.
Gen AI is going to be, the initial one right now, everyone's excited about the technology and they're building apps that can improve your sales function. They can improve, your operations. They can improve your warehouse data, dashboards, and various things like that.
Sure.
To a certain extent, we've been able to do that now for a long time. It's been ramped up with Gen AI. But the next generation, and Mustafa Suleyman, head of AI at Microsoft, he talks about this, that AI is your companion. And there's a sense in which you can see companion as a tool that just does my bidding. But what we're working on is like a third generation. It's a companion that really, really knows you intimately, knows your life and your world, and becomes, in a sense, an advisor and part of you, which is a whole different potential. AI is really cool, but also really scary in that.
So what's your 50,000-foot message to somebody who says, well, this is just going to eliminate tens of thousands of jobs. It's going to eliminate me. Do you have a sense for that?
Nervous laughter.
Yeah.
They have a right to be scared because it is. But it's one of those things where no matter if you're scared or not, it's coming. It's here. Mm-hmm. Like we cannot get around this. So if you're scared, the best thing is jump in, learn AI, learn how to use it. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of jobs will disappear, but they'll be reimagined to something else.
Yeah.
So that's the only way is to change. We can't put our head in the sand because whether you like it tomorrow or not, there's going to be a very smart companion that is going to be able to do some jobs for you.
Yeah.
But we got to think of it as a good way. If we have this very smart entity, whatever, companion, and we train it to help us analyze and cut out the noise, you've all of a sudden got a gatekeeper to your life if you can learn how to use it correctly.
Right. Yeah. And they probably don't get hung up on distractions like coffee breaks.
Yeah.
Not usually.
Bio breaks, whatever it might be. Seriously, though,
No,
I mean,
it's true.
when
It
you
is
look
true.
at the productivity, just the sheer productivity cycle, but that's pretty rudimentary. But
I mean, to pull in older conversations, though, lifelong learning has been a part of our vocabulary for a long time. Building a learning community, the need for people to continue to evolve and change in light of their context has been around a long time. Humans, we all struggle with change. We kind of want things to be the same. Mm-hmm. And the pace, and what AnneMarie was referencing, you read Harari, on Sapiens, it's like the pace of change. You can go back 50,000 years and the pace of change was slow. But all of a sudden in the last 3 decades, it seems like the pace is accelerating. I think it's easy for all of us to feel like overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there's this challenge, and I feel it, as someone who's, my final third of life or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like, am I going to stop, put my head in the sand and go skiing, climb mountains, or am I going to stay in the game?
Okay.
And I was talking to my 82-year-old mother a few years ago, and she was frustrated with technology and various things like that. And I just said, Mom, you got to keep up.
Yeah. If
you don't keep up, then it's changing so fast. All of a sudden, it's just so too much to learn. Yeah. So there's a sense of the constant pace of learning and transformation and change that has to become part of who we are.
Got it.
I think.
So what was the impetus for Motis AI, and why this company, and why are you here doing what you're doing?
Do you want to talk
No.
about that? Honestly, I was one of my mentors, Max Dupree, whose family founded Herman Miller. He always talked about leadership and management as relational. And Peter Drucker used to talk about leadership as that way. So we're extending the work of Peter Drucker, if you will, with the idea and the limits of Drucker and that crowd. They were fantastic on management science, and you get all these things. And then when I was at a leadership think tank, when it came to the human side of it, it got wobbly, frankly. Some of the assessments that people were using were really outdated. There was no science behind it. They're not verifiable. Mm-hmm. And when you start tweaking with your organizations, I saw this massive gap in organizations on the human side that if they professionalized it, stabilized it, created more objective ideas, put some science and research into it, organizations would be not just better run, but they would be more profitable, effective, and efficient. Got it. And so it's almost as though we're trying what accounting and finance did in the last 50 to 100 years. We're trying in Motis to update the human side so that organizations can become more human. Mm-hmm. What AI has done, and the tricky part with the acceleration of AI, all of a sudden now we're not just building a tech stack and asking people to begin, adopt, and use technology. We're actually changing the way we work together in a fundamental way. So it's almost like our work now with human-centered design around the human side of organization is amped up. I honestly think that every organization should be calling, because this is the fundamental shift that we're all going through. Very good. AI is not the problem. Right. It's the adoption of AI into our business system, which is a human issue.
That's right. And it's pretty consistent across the board.
Consistent.
So Motis, what does it mean, Motis One? Is there a symbolism behind that, or?
Yeah, it's motivation. There is a sense in which what's below the surface in oceanographic work is, I mean, what we see on organizations, the 10% above the surface is barely what's happening. All the stuff that really is going on is below the surface. So that's what we focus on.
And that's what you guys hope to help a lot of good folks and companies understand?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it a service and support model? What's the overall business model?
It is. On the strategy side, we have a very defined process. So it is a service-based model. It's funny, like when you look at financial advising, if you sat down, you'd never been to a financial advisor before, the first thing they're going to do is say, well, I want to get to know you. Do you know where all your money is? A lot of people don't, right?
That's right.
So there's this initial sort of almost like an audit. So our process, we actually begin with the various constituents that are involved. We do a workshop, help them align what their business strategy is, and then help them then begin to deal with the fears of it and nail it down to say, here are the top 5 items that we should begin to address.
Got it.
Then we do an audit to say, well, where do things currently stand? What does your organization look like? Then once you have an audit, then you can begin to talk about what does change look like. One of the scariest things, I think, with AI right now, and a lot of CEOs I know have sort of put the kibosh on it, is the randomness. People are just trying, which is great, fun.
Yeah.
But it's like
It's costing the companies a lot of money.
if you got 1,000 people there and everybody's sort of randomly experimenting, it's just, it can end up chaos.
Can create chaos.
Let's take a step back, take a breath, make it methodical. We can actually transition through this, and we can change and bring people along with it and your culture along with it in a healthy, vibrant way, rather than just sort of this random chaotic.
Very good. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to get into the potential impacts of AI in the workforce more specifically, and then how to effectively manage this adoption of all these different technologies and how they are going to perform within your organization. So stick around. We'll be back in a moment. All right, we're back here, third quarter Business Digest Weekly on a February 7th, about 3:30 in the afternoon. Heading home soon, I hope. Fire up the blenders, and it's almost Margaritaville. I mean, it's warm enough. Why not?
It is.
Hey, let's do this.
70 in Denver.
70. Nice. Okay, that's Rick Beaton, Dr. Rick Beaton. He's the CEO of Motis OneAI, and then across from him is AnneMarie Artzen, also Ph.D. and strategy officer.
Yep.
Very good. Well, welcome back, guys. I really appreciate you giving us kind of this philosophical intake, a little historical perspective, and then some overall understanding of the AI apparatus in general. And I think that's, in a 48-minute program, that's probably, we're not going to boil the ocean. I mean, there's a lot of deep dives that you can do within this. But as a business show, I definitely want to encourage our leaders to kind of listen in to some of the philosophical doctrines that are being conveyed here and grab some pearls, business pearls of wisdom, so that you can, as you're investigating different solutions within your operations, whether it's financial, whether it's productivity, marketing, sales, whatever the function of your business might be, take a listen. And I think some of these philosophical doctrines can help you vet solutions that might be right for your organization. But the one common strand I'm seeing here is we want to make sure that the human component, the human dynamic, isn't removed entirely, or it's considered when we talk about the impact of AI on our workforce, our workflow dynamics, everything, because it is a paradigm shift. And as you said at the top of the program, Rick, they're not super excited about change all the time. And when you just force it on them, that can really, it can create a backward slide in productivity for some time until they start to get comfortable. But that period is expensive as well. So AnneMarie, what does it look like? I mean, just on the surface, start up here and then drill down as far as you can on what the impacts are for workforce dynamics and workflow.
Wow. Okay.
It's a big one.
There's a big one.
Yeah.
Where I see AI and technology in general, it's always going to be a disruption of the workforce. So if you're a business owner, I think your best opportunity is to make sure your workforce is ready for that.
Okay.
Make sure that your teams are working efficiency. There are a lot of different business processes, all these different efficient things. And what you think about is when you train your organization to be able to pivot, to be able to change, and so that they're not necessarily jumping off something and scared of it. They're ready to try it. That is one of the biggest things you can do for your organization. And whether it's teams, whether it's getting the right people in the right seat on the bus, or whether it's your organization in general, having the right leaders that can listen and pivot with it. Those are all important things. You got to think of your business as an ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this great new plant tree, whatever we call AI these days, coming in.
Yeah.
And like any other invasive species, it's going to take over. So you need to make sure that your workforce is ready for that.
Okay.
And so, whether it's just one tool or an entire program that is structured by AI, it's going to do the same thing. So having a healthy organization is the best way to go about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to stop the disruption. It's here.
It's here.
But it can be a huge asset if you're open to it, if you're open to learning and getting really in the mix of the growth mindset, kind of like, okay, we know this is coming. We need to prepare. Let's all try to learn the best we can and learn from each other so that you can move forward.
So what are some strategies that we can jot down to start the conversation and then start effectively implementing the adoption of AI in respective areas of our company? Is that something we can tackle?
Yeah, absolutely. To pull it back a little bit first is that it's like I like to think of it as like if you're an architect and you're building a building, and we hire engineers, and as engineers they come in and they say, well, let's use wood, glass, steel, cement, all of that sort of stuff. And part of me is going, why can't I use plywood? Why can't I use cardboard or foam?
Fair enough. All right.
Right. And you say, well, the engineers say that if we're going to build a 10-story building, we have to know the structural limitations and the strength limitations of wood, glass, steel, concrete. And that's how you build a building.
Got it.
So when it comes to an organization, this is where it gets tricky, right?
Yeah.
It's like I always ask, so what are the limitations and the strengths of humanity? And people go, well, what do you mean? I'm the boss, and the way I use power is I just sort of tell people what to do, and it's my business, and you can, we're bringing in this technology, and you're going to do whatever I want. And then part of me wants to go, but you're dealing with humans. And so, one of the core elements is learning how to message these things ahead of time, including people in the process. It's like the way we use power in the process. How do we bring people into the conversation and include them in the conversation? Outlining a strategy so that we know what we're doing, that it's implemented in an effective, methodical way that causes the little amount of disruption. Addressing the amount of fear and anxiety that this incurs. It's amazing that even CEOs, the amount of CEOs that are afraid of losing their business in the next decade because right? So senior leaders are scared of the technology. Lower level employees are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. Whole industry, we've been told that in the next decade, we're going to lose 70% of employment. That's a social issue as well, right? And whether it's true or not, and whether it means, but this disruption, there's this like subliminal anxiety that we all have. So a human-centered design approach that we need to account for that. If we're going to actually move our organizations effectively along, we have to realize we're working with people. We're not working with fungible elements that we can just hire and fire and put into place.
That's right.
And, people, we are very, very dynamic, but at the same time, there is tons of research that's come out that's, repeatable and reputable on all of our genealogy, all of these different things. And so going forward, that's also something is to get to know who you're working with. You can map a person's attributes, just like you can map a business. You can sit down and find out, okay, this person doesn't like change. This person really likes detailed. And just like any other accounting or finance, you can sit in a team and you could find out, okay, these are all of these people. We're missing this type of person. And you can hire for that. So that's another thing, we always talk, we can't understand humans. Well, we can. You just have to look at the biology, look at, I think there was a study, it was like 174 twins that they studied that were identical. And there was like 150 other non-identical twins. I think that's paternal.
Paternal.
Yeah. And what they studied is there are 5 basic characteristics that all humans have in the entire world. Now imagine when you came into a company, if you took something like that, an assessment, and it's like, oh, you'd be good at this, and this. So no matter what I tell my boss, there's kind of a hardcore proof that, okay, I won't be good at doing this monotonous task over and over and over again. So I think as we move forward, we have to realize that people have a lot of skills and we have a lot of different ways that our brain works. You know, this cognitive diversity is something you hear a lot these days because we are completely inundated with all of these different cultures these days. Yeah. It's not just one or the other. So all of our brains have changed to let that come in and to, let that come into the thinking process. And it's such a strength that our companies forget to even look at. They're just like, oh, whatever, she'll be good at this, she'll be good at that. Mm-hmm. But it really comes down to biology and all of these things that we don't consider.
That's fantastic stuff, guys. I'm completely blown away. Rick, you had some?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So how does Motis One plan to address these specifically? How would you roadmap your company into a consulting arrangement with a specific company?
First is to understand that every company is different.
Yep.
That's the important part. And it's not just different because of vertical. It's different because of the way that they work together. So we have a very specific process that is based on integrating the technology, but at the same time accounting for the human dynamics that exist with that. Mm-hmm. So we view ourselves more as a collaborative partner. I think there's always been a view of consulting is, well, the experts come in, they look at you, they collect data, they give you a report, and then they walk out the door, which isn't really helpful at the end of the day. So our company, we've always worked in a collaborative way. So we first seek to understand, we collect data, then we offer multidisciplinary analysis that highlights the specific areas, collects, and then we, together with the leadership of the organization, plot a way forward. So it aligns with their business strategy, aligns with the core identity of who they're trying to become as an organization, mm-hmm. and at the same time works at implementing from a human-centered side of organizational change that limits the disruption. I think that's what we're all trying to do, is we're trying to evolve in a healthy way if AI is the most revolutionary technology we have, there's a sense in which I think we have to change in a really profound way to accommodate the revolutionary nature of the technology. Mm-hmm. But how do we do that in a sustainable, healthy way that's good for all of us and good for business?
Very good.
Because at the end of the day, we want to do business. That's kind of, we're not like an HR consulting firm.
We're an industrial species, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we like creating, we like solving, we like productivity and work. Most of us do. Yeah. And, it's just that you fear what you don't know and understand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's a huge paradigm shift. I mean, to craft a wheel, that's something like you said, you can still control. It's existential. It's out here, right? Yeah. But this, as we've already articulated, is getting smarter than us by the minute. Well, George Carlin thought we were an evolutionary cul-de-sac. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that when we come back in the next quarter of Business Digest Weekly. We've got AnneMarie Artzen, Ph.D., and Rick Beaton, Ph.D., both chief executives at Motis OneAI. That's MOTIS .ai. There is no .com. So one more time, Motis OneAI. Back in a moment.
My experience with Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group has been top-notch. The whole orthopedic group, they've worked very well together. Even when I've gone through PT or needed to get my collar prosthetic, everybody's been just right on top of it. It's all centralized and the communications have been awesome. Even though I had my nervousness about going into surgery, I was still very confident. I knew I was going to be okay. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group is definitely getting me back to my life and the things that I want to do.
right, we're back here, fourth quarter with the Business Digest Weekly, February 7th, hour and 15 minutes away from our first toddy, Dr. AnneMarie Artzen and Rick Beaton, Dr. Rick Beaton, CEO of Motis OneAI. So check out their website, motisone.ai. So we've been having a broad conversation. These are broad strokes because each organization is different, and how we utilize and implement these tools, I should say, is going to be very different. And, I think the obvious place to start is with efficiencies. That's, I think, most, certainly in the manufacturing realm, certainly in the high productivity realm, where we can see seconds or even, larger increments of time being saved. I think that's where a lot of people hope to start and utilize AI and keep it at arm's length and with some controls.
Yeah.
Is that a good place to start for most companies? Help us understand.
Yeah, it is. If you think from a business point of view, anytime you save even a second, you're saving dollars. And if you look at all the amount of things you do in a day, if you can be more efficient at the small tasks that don't mean a lot, the everyday monotonous stuff that you have to do, that opens you up for the more meaningful work of your job. So yeah, AI right now is an amazing tool. There are things like Grammarly that make sure that you write like an author and you put in your Cambridge commas or, all of these different little things like that. But in this way, you are making yourself more efficient, more effective, and you look like a better business person.
Okay.
Like little things like that you wouldn't think have a huge, influence, but they do. And the same thing, using your AI when you rewrite a LinkedIn post, something like that could enable you to catch the audience more. There's even programs that can rewrite your hashtags and find out the most, used hashtag, the most brilliant one. So I think for the public right now, AI is a tremendous tool. And there are things for everything. There are AI for sales, there are AI for graphics, and they're getting really good and they're going to be getting better. So I think for our audience, yes, get in there, dabble, and really enjoy the process of having something that could make you look better to your boss, to people around you, and really make you feel more comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, Rick, earlier that, this isn't necessarily the entree or entryway for AI solutions, isn't necessarily the human resource department. It could really come from anywhere on the floor. But executive leadership has to be able to put their head around it to the degree that they understand that it's going to be an efficient tool for them, and then start deploying it, allowing people to deploy it, I should say.
Yeah, I think to sort of pull the conversations apart a little bit, when Gen AI came on the scene a few years ago, I think we were all of us awestruck about the potential of, it's like, oh my gosh, and then we started, from the OpenAI crowd and the DeepMind crowd and all them, we started, and we started to project, I think, the conversation of what it potentially could be 5 years from now. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so then the question is, and the reality is we've had AI for about, 70 years? The notion of an algorithm and an algorithm shaping business processes, understanding big data, blah, blah, blah. It's been around a long time.
Right.
So it's the Gen AI conversation and it's fun to talk about. I love talking about the philosophical and the societal implications and big infrastructure and going to Mars and, but right now it's a lot of it's just it's a tool.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit like, you could say, what would it be? How would you approach changing your manufacturing facility, say at Boeing or at Herman Miller with the air on chair to improve your system or process? We go, I got that. Well, this is just an advanced technology that we can apply to broader areas of our workforce, whether it's the accounting department or in manufacturing or these various elements. And there is automation and there is replication. And I think for a lot of people, we recognize that there are elements that frankly, we don't like about work. You know?
Maybe
we don't have to do it anymore. Yeah.
Is it safe to say that the AI is only going to be as good as the human input?
I can't answer that question.
But you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
Peter Drucker. And
Yeah.
Peter says everything that touches your customer is marketing.
Yep.
Okay. It's one of his foundational principles. So
We exist to create a customer.
exactly. Okay. Can AI learn that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're experimenting that with ourselves. Like in our startup, a friend of ours who was an advisor, the senior person at Microsoft, he joked and he said, Rick, you're not a human-centered design organization he said, you are an AI organization.
Yeah.
So we think first that before we hire, should we hire somebody, it's how can we engage and use artificial intelligence to perform that role for us, which will limit the amount of people that we hire.
That's right.
Right. So that's part of our thinking. We're that next generation company that even what we're trying to do, we are an AI company trying to accomplish these aims in society and with businesses.
Yeah. And of course, there's the other side of the discussion. We're really focused here on how to implement and adopt AI into our companies, create efficiencies, better margins, better productivity, better morale among folks who maybe have been pigeonholed in the wrong job.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's also the nefarious side of this world. And I think that's what gets a lot of news and buzz in our public discourse. So can we separate the two? And is there a real strong ethics conversation that we need to have? I'm getting a sense that, there probably is.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Shall we go?
Gosh, I don't know how deep we want to go in that one.
Well, we got about 4.5 minutes. So
with all new technology, there's always going to be a potential downside. That's who we are as a human race. We can be extremely brilliant and a little wicked at the same time.
That's right.
So yes, going forward, there is always going to be an ethical, but that's just doing business. People that say there's no ethics, that's just not untrue. Everything you do just kind of comes down to, am I using this for good? Am I using this to make money in a bad light? I'm going to pass it over to Rick. You can go with that one.
Give it a shot, Rick.
Well, no, it's interesting. Like philosophically, you could say, is technology itself neutral?
Yeah.
And if we were just to play out, Jonathan Haidt's book on the anxious generation, things like that. I think most parents and a lot of us would say the net of, having smartphones and social media in our kids' hands all the way up through teenagers and giving them too early is probably a net negative. Now, we didn't know that necessarily when we started when social media emerged. So it's difficult with technologies to say, like a lot of people, everything's positive or it's how we use it. And, Marshall McLuhan, to go way back, the famous phrase, the medium is the message. So then you start to think, well, what does news look like when it's advertising based and on a 24-hour cycle? Are we really providing serious news, or is it more opinion?
Stream of consciousness.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And to McLuhan's point, it becomes entertainment. We sit in front of the TV, and I know a lot of people disagree with McLuhan, but I tend to agree with them on that one. It's like am I watching news or I'm watching entertainment? Yeah. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
And there is the sense in which I think with Gen AI and then blending quantum, which is going to accelerate it.
Yeah.
There's something about that's going to fundamentally change. And we don't know. I don't know what the medium is right now.
I get you. Well, I want to give you guys a good minute and a half here to unpack how you want people to engage Motis AI. Care to take a shot at it? We love to be a part of the customers that we work with, helping them shape their future. Okay.
Helping them run better businesses, more strategically aligned. So if they valued this conversation and they're interested, we would love to hear from them. There's the other side, the tech startup we are accelerating and growing and interested in people of a like mind joining with us to do something really cool with AI. That's
Yeah.
I think we're in a unique position. Dr. Beaton, has been studying for many, many years in the people side. And I've been studying many, many years on the business side. So together, we've really been looking at the efficiency of how you move forward. And I said before, I think people are one of our most valuable assets that is underutilized. We've been in this conveyor belt / one size fits all. And no matter how hard we try, we are unique. We're very different. And Rick and I have been studying that for a long time. And we want to figure out how to make that difference a competitive advantage in your company by kind of making some guardrails and kind of figuring out how to make a healthy company that can thrive, whether it's AI or a new technology. It's really, if you got a healthy system, you're less likely to fall to disruptions.
I agree. Yeah. Doctors AnneMarie Artzen and Rick Benton, Motis OneAI, MOTISONE.ai. Guys, thanks for being here. I mean, we just scratched the surface on everything. I mean, we're as a culture, as a business ecosystem, from a national perspective, I mean, we really are just getting a handle on this. But I love the fact that you guys lead with the heart and the head, and you're bringing it to, helping us understand how to framework this in the context of humans, making this adoption into this new world that we're going into. So I really do appreciate that about you. It's not just technology, jargon, and solutions. It's human-led.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you to Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group for helping underwrite this program. That's why we get to meet cool folks like this each week. So next week, we'll see you. We've got some more great guests lined up throughout the course of February. And then on March 5th, we got J.W. Roth coming in. He's going to talk about the new deal that he and the city of Colorado Springs made as it relates to the sound ordinances for Ford Amphitheater. So see you next week.
You've been tuned in to Business Digest Weekly with Dirk Hobbs. If you'd like to be considered for a spot on our show, email us at info@coloradomediagroup.com.